Hey everyone, who's more in the right, the protagonist or the antagonist? Say who and why in the comments. Let's get into the full story. He laughed before he even sat down. That smug, nasal chuckle he always had when he thought he was holding the better hand. Harold Creighton leaned back in the leather conference chair like he owned the air in the room. Still playing Detective Yara? He said, waving a thick blue folder in my direction. You know, for someone who used to sit on the oversight board, you sure turned into a bitter little defector. I didn't blink. I just slid the black binder across the table. No label, no logo, sealed tight. His fingers hovered over it like it might bite. My name's on the cover report, I said. Go ahead, open it. He raised an eyebrow and popped the clasp. His grin didn't even last 5 seconds. Page 1 dropped flat on the glossy table. By page 2, his lips had tightened. By page 3, his face was colorless. He stared at the ledger entries, wire logs, falsified requisitions, fake contractor codes, and one bolded project name, Crusade Valley. His voice was paper thin. Where did you get this? Same place you buried Crusade Valley, I said, staring straight into his eyes. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going, and where are you joining from? Silence fell like a punch. He didn't even touch the report again. You don't know what you're doing, he said. I ignored him and tapped the second tab. 6 dead, all under 25, sent into a floodplain during monsoon season with expired gear and no radio relay. But the budget says they had GPS, backup sat phones, and 2 Jeeps. That's not, he started, but his voice cracked. I kept going. You authorized the release of funds to a vendor that doesn't exist. Requisition signed off by someone who died in 2014. Cross-checked with donor logs. The same 3 donors pop up across 6 ghost charities, all linked to your admin chain. He slammed the binder shut. You're twisting things. No, I said, calm and clear. I'm documenting them. His hands were shaking now, barely, but I saw it. I stood up and leaned over the table. You want to call it a smear? Fine, let's proceed. Tribunal or court, your choice. You'll burn everything down, he hissed. I walked to the door. Then bring a hose. I didn't wait for him to respond. I left him sitting there with the binder and the weight of every name inside it. I didn't always sit on the other side of that table. 4 years back, I was the one writing those reports, managing donations, vetting foreign aid partners. I believed in it, not just the mission, but the machine. I thought the megachurch model was flawed but fixable. Big reach, big resources, big results. That's what I told myself. Then came Harvest River. It was a smaller project, food drops and water systems in Honduras, but the numbers didn't track. I flagged a duplicate payment on a vendor invoice. Same line item, same amount, same day. One was marked urgent field procurement, the other donor gift allocation. That started the chain. By the end of the week, I had 3 overlapping reports, 2 vanished contractors, and a missing 30 grand. I brought it to my supervisor. He shrugged it off, said, probably a clerical error. But 2 days later, I got summoned to an internal review panel. 12 hours notice, no counsel. I sat across from 7 board members and Harold Creighton himself, the same man who laughed in my face today. Back then, he smiled like he was doing me a favor. You've made some bold assumptions, he said. Do you have any proof of intentional wrongdoing? I'm asking for an audit, I told them. That's my job. Creighton glanced at the others, then leaned forward. Your job is to support the mission, Yara. This feels like you've lost sight of that. Before I could respond, they pulled up a list of past errors I'd supposedly made. Timesheets, late reports, misfiled donations. One of them even questioned my mental health. I knew then it wasn't a review. It was a firing squad. By the end of the session, my credentials were revoked, my badge deactivated. They didn't just kick me out, they dragged my name through the mud. Internal memo went out within 24 hours. Yara Marlowe, dismissed for conduct unbecoming of senior oversight staff. My phone stopped ringing. Friends stopped calling. I couldn't walk into a church without someone whispering. They said I'd turned on the body, that I'd fallen away. I didn't. They pushed me out. I was still pulling myself together when I got a call. Block number, raspy voice. Meet me at Ridgeline off I-90 after dark, South Lot. It was Margaret Duval. I hadn't seen her in months. She'd always been one of the high-order names, Senior Missions Council, decades of spotless records. She was dressed in a plain coat, no makeup, hair tucked back. She looked like someone attending her own funeral. She didn't sit, just leaned on the hood of her car and lit a cigarette like she hadn't done it in 20 years. You were right, she said. I didn't say anything, just stared. You asked about a vendor line. Procurement code V914. I remembered. I'd flagged it twice in the Harvest River reports. Showed up in unrelated budgets. Got buried both times. That code didn't start with Harvest, she said. It started with a mission called Crusade Valley. Year before you got promoted? I asked what it was. She didn't answer, just handed me a slip of paper with an old project number and two internal initials, E, W, and HC. Then she drove off. No goodbye, no follow-up. So I went looking. Took weeks to dig through old logs. The public ones were scrubbed clean, but I had copies. Staff archives, expense summaries, hard copies from old conferences. I found the requisition code buried under a children's hospital initiative in Uganda. That hospital was never built. The same code popped again in a construction budget for Nepal, but the contractor listed was a plumbing firm in Kentucky. And in both places, donor money disappeared. I started charting them, fake vendors, matching dollar amounts, same entry formatting. Whoever wrote them had a style. Short bullet descriptions, odd spacing on totals, slashes instead of dashes. It was like a fingerprint. Crusade Valley itself wasn't listed as a location, just as a developmental outreach campaign in budget terms. But then I pulled up an old missionary roll. 6 names attached to a short-term immersion mission in a South American floodplain, all dead within 2 days of arrival. Environmental failure, the report said. Tragic natural event. But the gear list on record didn't match what was found on site. No transport, no food reserves. Nothing was ever delivered. And the requisition code, it activated the week after their deaths, triggering a massive withdrawal routed through a now-defunct donor hub in Belize. It wasn't a mistake. It was a cover. Those kids were used as the shield. When I closed my laptop that night, my hands were cold. I didn't pray. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened a new folder, labeled it Crusade Valley, and started again. The first thread snapped loose on a Tuesday. I was tracing one of the vendor codes from the Crusade Valley requisition. Took me into North Carolina, Asheville specifically. A vendor called Hope Ridge Logistics supposedly shipped water filtration units and survival kits to the team 2 weeks before deployment. No digital trail, just a scanned invoice buried in a PDF backup. So I drove out. The listed address was a strip mall off an old state highway. The sign out front was sun-bleached, cracked at the corners. Unit C was locked, windows dusty, old for lease sign peeling inside the glass. The only thing left was a rusted mailbox with faded lettering. Hope Ridge Ministries, Inky. I ran the name through the state registry. Their license expired 7 years ago. No renewal, no tax filings, nothing. They were paper only, no online donation link, no website, no contact number. Fake, completely. But someone used them to move money. Back at the motel, I pulled the invoice again. On the bottom corner, tiny print. Transfer number, 48-71-R. I ran it against a few internal archives I'd salvaged from my old oversight files. That number didn't show up on the church side, so I tried something else. An offshore transfer database scraped from leaked FinCEN docs. That number matched a wire that moved $87,000 from Hope Ridge Logistics to a luxury asset firm called Creswell and Tate Holdings. And guess what name popped up on their executive contact list? Nathan Creighton, Harold's nephew. Now, I wasn't dealing with negligence. This was deliberate. The logistics invoice was fabricated, different file format, newer font embedded in the signature line. But the layout? Same broken grammar, same spacing quirks, and then it hit me. I pulled up a donation acknowledgement Harold had signed 3 years ago during a gala campaign. We'd printed hundreds of them. The formatting matched the fake invoice line for line, spacing before the colons, hyphens where dashes should be, a stray period after the donor ID, same fingerprint. He wrote it, or dictated it to someone who copied his style. I stared at both docs side by side and felt my gut flip. This wasn't just a trail, it was a system. He didn't mess up paperwork, he built it. That night, I drove to a print shop 3 towns over, ran 3 full copies of every doc I had so far. No cloud, no digital trail. Paper only. Copy 1, sealed in a waterproof envelope, hidden behind the drywall of my storage unit under a fake name. Copy 2, delivered by hand to a lawyer I trusted out of state. Didn't tell her what it was, just gave her a name and a number. If anything happens to me, call this guy and publish. Copy 3. I paid cash to register a time vault slot in a private archive group, scanned the binder page by page, and dropped the sealed copy into a numbered case. No names attached. I encrypted a digital version, sure, but I didn't trust that. This trail was already too slick. Too many missing files. Too many clean deletions. By midnight, I had the start of a full dossier. Crusade Valley wasn't a failed mission. It was a shell op, a sacrificial headline to cover a fund redirection they never expected anyone to trace. 6 kids were collateral. Harold signed the release and washed his hands with prayer and media quotes. And I'd just lit the first match. I didn't trust many people, but I trusted Logan Mercer. He was the first high-profile defector the church couldn't shut down. Left the pulpit 5 years ago, started a lo-fi podcast from his basement, calling out dirty donation trails and behind-the-scenes manipulation. They called him a heretic. He called them cowards. I always liked that ratio. I met him at a roadside diner near Roanoke. Corner booth, back wall, blinds half shut. He hadn't aged much, still kept his buzz cut and that dry, flat stare like he was waiting for someone to lie to him. I dropped a flash drive on the table. "I'm not here to convert you," I said. "Just need verification." He slid it toward himself but didn't plug it in. "Creighton," among others. He gave a slow exhale. "You know they'll bury you if you're wrong." "I'm not." He stared for another second, then pulled out his laptop. 10 minutes later, he looked up. "You're not wrong, but you're early." "What do you mean?" He turned the screen toward me. Side-by-side images of a shell charity I'd tagged, Riverlight Aid Foundation, and its registered marketing firm. The logo was identical to a new campaign tied to Renew Revival, a megachurch arm launched last year in 4 states. "Renew Revival has a PAC now," Logan said. "State-level influence in Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and Texas. This isn't a Creighton job. He's just paperwork. This thing's federal." I clenched my jaw. "So who's pulling the strings?" Logan tapped a folder. Creswell and Tate doesn't just link to Creighton's nephew. It links to board members across 6 different nonprofits. And one old name that keeps surfacing on contractor approvals, Cassandra Reed. I blinked. Cass Reed? She worked finance compliance. Gone before I came in. "Yeah, fired for flagging donation discrepancies. But she reached out to me once. Paranoid as hell. I can get her to talk." I nodded once. "Set it up." He left the booth to make the call. Came back 10 minutes later, face tight. "She'll meet, but she wants it quiet. No names, no paper." We met Cass 2 hours later in the back of a laundromat. She looked wrecked. Baggy hoodie, no eye contact, fingers twitching like she hadn't slept in a week. "You have the ledger?" she asked. "Pieces of it," I said. "I'm building the rest." She nodded slowly. "Then you need the archive." I leaned in. "Where?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Retreat Center. Montclair site. Files aren't digital. Offline only. Cold archive, restricted clearance. You won't get in with a name badge." I frowned. "They still store hard copies?" "They keep a shadow ledger for legal risk. All requisitions, edits, root approvals, physical signatures. That's how they protect the core." Logan raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know it still exists?" "I saw it," she said. "Years ago, before they locked it down, before they buried Crusade Valley." She handed me a folded paper. "Old staff clearance ID, mine. It won't scan anymore, but it'll pass visual." I looked down at the faded card. Logan asked, "You sure this is the right play?" Cass didn't flinch. "If she's going to bring it down, she has to get inside." And I would. I pressed Cass's old ID against the plexiglass panel and smiled at the woman behind the desk like I wasn't breaking into the beating heart of their records center. "Yara Barnes, Internal Audit Division," I said. "Appointment with Director Albright, compliance check." She barely looked up, scanned the ID, nodded. "You're early," I smiled wider. "I like to get ahead of schedule." Montclair was built like a retreat. Tall pines, fake serenity, soft carpet to muffle everything. But once you passed the chapel and coffee bar, it turned cold, metal, gray-walled back corridors designed like a bunker. I was escorted by a junior staffer in khakis and a Renew Revival pin. He kept glancing at my ID, probably wondering how someone so plain got audit clearance. 3 checkpoints in, each one slower than the last. Badge scan, visual match. Fake request letter I had printed on letterhead I copied from an old volunteer email blast. By the time I reached sublevel B2, my hands were sweating through my jacket sleeves. He stopped at a locked door. This is it. Internal records, nothing leaves this room. Understood, I said, and waited for the buzz. The lock clicked. I stepped into the cold. The archive wasn't a room. It was a vault. Rows and rows of metal cabinets, color-coded by year and division. No computers, no cameras, just silence and the hum of old Freon units kicking under the floor. I moved fast. Crusade Valley wasn't under missions. It was classified under Outreach Special Development, a catch-all for anything they didn't want tracked publicly. Took 10 minutes to find the cabinet, a beige box marked OSD 2017B. Inside, 3 thick packets. One was a standard mission outline. The second had a red stripe on the corner. Emergency revision. I opened the pre-event approval first, signed 6 days before deployment. Terrain map, gear list, emergency contacts, local liaison confirmation. All standard. All legit looking. Then I opened the revision. The timestamp was 1 hour before the final sign-off. The map had changed, pulled them out of Zone 4 and dropped them in Zone 7. Floodplain, no cell coverage, no way out if anything went wrong. The contact was a fake, no surname, just Brother Elijah. And the gear list? Slashed by half. No satcoms, no backup generator, and 1 truck instead of 2. Initials on the last page, JH. Not a real signatory, just another proxy. But I'd seen that before. That same alias showed up in the donor summary for Riverlight Aid, the shell charity tied to Harold's luxury firm. JH signed the approval that released funds the day after the team died. This was it. Proof they changed the mission parameters knowing it would collapse, knowing there'd be no survivors to contradict it. I copied every page, hand steady, breath shallow, folded them in order, slid them into the lining of my audit folder, burned the barcode into my brain. Then the overhead lights flicked once, soft, barely noticeable. But it meant something. I glanced toward the panel on the wall. Access log ping, unverified query flagged. Shit. I shoved the folder into my satchel, closed the drawers, straightened the papers exactly how I found them. By the time I reached the door, I heard movement above, muffled voices through the vent. I took the long hall, not the elevator. Badge didn't work this time. I used the crash bar and pushed through into the maintenance wing. 2 staffers turned the corner ahead. I ducked into a side stairwell, didn't breathe until their footsteps passed. I climbed 1 level, found a janitor's door, unlocked it with my pick key, thank you, Logan, and stepped out into a fenced loading bay behind the chapel annex. No alarms, no shouts, just the low hum of the retreat's central AC and birds chirping like nothing had just blown wide open. I pulled the car key from my pocket, peeled off my blazer, and tossed the fake ID in a dumpster as I crossed the lot. I didn't run. I walked out the way I came in, calm, silent, and carrying the proof they buried 6 bodies to fund beachfront condos and campaign dinners. And I wasn't done yet. My phone buzzed as I was pulling off the highway. No name, just a photo. Cass's mailbox, smashed open, bent backward like a crowbar got to it. Her front door was tagged with a single sheet of paper, taped dead center. Backslide. 2 seconds later, another ping. New image, my father's grave. Same cemetery, same granite stone I hadn't visited in over a year. This time, a typed note laid across the base. Faithfuls protect their own. I parked in a gas station lot and called Logan immediately. Voice steady, hands not. He picked up on the first ring. Talk. They sent a message, I said. 2, actually. Cass got hit. My father's grave. He didn't speak for a second. Then, you still have all 3 copies? Yes, 1 stays with me. 1's in the vault. The other's going to the lawyer tomorrow. He didn't argue. Then it's time. We set the fail-safe. I'm not backing off. I know, that's why we prepare for when they make you. I heard typing on his end, fast and sharp. He was already queuing up the content. Our deal had always been clean. If I went dark for more than 48 hours, he'd release the binder through his podcast with full voiceover and document index. I hung up and drove straight to the lawyer's office. No appointment. Walked in, dropped the sealed copy on her desk, and left before she could ask questions. Then I mailed the 3rd one, overnight to Margaret Duval. No signature required, just a handwritten note on the inside cover. I didn't bury them. You did. Cass went dark that night. No text, no location share, nothing. Logan said she'd burned her sim, switched cars, left town before the next sunrise. She knows what this is, he told me. It's not about the mission anymore. Not just Creighton. You're shaking the whole foundation. They'll try to silence it. They already are. I sat on my kitchen floor that night with the blinds drawn and recorded the video. No names, no church labels, no outrage. Just a walkthrough, clean, neutral tone. A digital breadcrumb trail laid out with dates, amounts, and unanswered questions. If any of this sounds familiar, I said into the lens, ask your records department. Ask to see the files. If they're clean, they'll show you. If not, then maybe you've already seen what I did. One take, straight upload to a dead drop cloud server. Logan had access to the release key. I didn't say my name. I didn't need to. The numbers spoke louder anyway. It took 48 hours. Logan texted first, "It's moving." By the end of the day, the video had 600,000 views and was climbing fast. Reddit threads popped up, Discord servers. A former missionary posted an old itinerary from a failed Sierra Leone trip. Same formatting, same donation shell, same signature line. By nightfall, someone leaked internal memos from Pathlight Aid Group, flagged with emergency reallocation, stamped across 3 years of reports. Donations for clean water diverted to property acquisitions. It wasn't just Crusade Valley. This went wide. Former volunteers, low-level staff, even a few ex-deacons started emailing Logan's burner account. One message read, "We always knew something didn't line up." Thank you. Another came with a scan of a fake contractor badge from a cleanup unit that had no business existing. Then came the kid, a trainee out of Dallas, maybe 19. He posted a video in uniform, church pin still on his collar. "If she's lying," he said, "then why does no one disprove her with numbers? Show us the ledgers. Not statements, not sermons. Numbers." It got clipped and reshared 1,000 times. Numbers Not Noise started trending, and that's when Creighton went live. A Tuesday morning news segment, glossy set, soft questions, a friendly host who smiled too much. "I've known Miss Marlowe for over a decade," he said, palms open like a saint. "This is a disturbed individual. She's bitter, disgraced. She was removed from the church tribunal for cause." Then he leaned in and added, "I mean, just look at the path she's on now. Hiding behind fake names, conspiracies. She carries that scar like a badge. That's not righteousness. That's vengeance." That did it. I called Logan. "Release page 3, line 12. "You sure?" "She opened this door. I'm walking through." He dropped the document within the hour. Raw scan, no redactions, no commentary. Just one line on official church letterhead. "Mission route revised at 0942 per JH review. Approvals routed under non-standard authority due to regional override. Same date, same sign-off. Exactly 61 minutes before deployment, social media exploded. The mission packet was never supposed to be altered. No JH ever existed in the church registry, and no regional override was filed in the original chain. News anchors started asking real questions. Donors demanded statements. One senior deacon got quietly suspended, pending internal inquiry. I watched it all from my couch, binder in hand, untouched. The storm wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to the people waking up. They didn't need me to tell them it was true. They already knew. The room smelled like old carpet and polished gilt. 12 chairs, 2 rows, a long oak table in the center with a felt runner and bottled water lined up like communion. Fluorescent lights overhead, humming like flies. A church-issued seal hung behind the head chair, faded and cracked near the frame. I walked in with Logan on my left and Margaret Duvall on my right. Her face was unreadable. Logan had a recorder in his jacket pocket. I carried the binder. Creighton was already seated across the aisle, arms crossed, one ankle resting over his knee like he was bored to be here. His tie was perfect, his smirk tighter than ever. They thought this was going to be polite, controlled, another closed-door cleanup. I placed the binder on the table. No intro, no fanfare, just a hard thud of paper and proof. Chairwoman Fisher looked down at the agenda sheet, cleared her throat. "Ms. Marlowe, you've been asked to clarify the accusations currently circulating regarding the Crusade Valley mission." "They're not accusations," I said. "They're documented transactions." I opened the binder, flipped past the first few tabs, and stopped on page 11. The donation routing matrix. Red-marked entries, altered timestamps, fabricated contractor IDs. Then I turned 2 more pages and laid the falsified mission approval flat on the table. Crusade Valley was rerouted using a non-standard authorization 1 hour before deployment. That authorization was signed under a known pseudonym tied to a fraudulent charity. The same name shows up across 4 redirected donations and a shell marketing firm linked to Renew Revival's parent entity. Creighton leaned forward. "This is ridiculous. You've dug up old drafts. None of this was final." I looked right at him. "The wire confirmations say otherwise." Silence. I flipped to the next page. "Initials here," I pointed. "Match Creighton's documented signature structure. Capital C in cursive, slanted upstroke, open loop on the H. Same format found in his 2019 gala sign-off sheets and 3 internal funding authorizations." One of the finance committee members, a man in a gray jacket with half-moon glasses, raised his hand halfway, voice quiet. "Wasn't he on sabbatical that quarter?" Logan didn't move, but I could feel his attention sharpen beside me. I slid the funding log across. 3 sign-offs under his account credentials during those months. 2 under proxy clearance. 1 during the exact week he was photographed in Greece. Another member opened a leather-bound folder and started whispering with the panel secretary. Creighton didn't say anything, his hands tensed, fingers twitching once before he stilled them. Margaret stepped forward. First time she spoke all day. "Ms. Marlowe has brought forward full documentation, dates, signatures, correspondence. None of it sourced from leaks. All of it sourced from internal church records." Chairwoman Fisher looked up at me. "Are you prepared to turn over the binder under seal for independent verification?" I nodded once. "I am." She tapped her pen once, then folded her hands. "Then we move to verification. Panel recesses for private review. All materials will remain on premises." I didn't say anything else. I closed the binder and pushed it toward the center of the table. Let them read it. Let it speak. Creighton didn't fight it. Not publicly. He walked into the final panel session 2 days later, looking thinner, like the starch had been drained from his bones. No tie this time, no smile, just a man who thought his castle was fireproof and woke up mid-burn. When they read the final statement, he kept his eyes on the table. "Harold Creighton is hereby removed from all leadership roles within the Faith United Network and referred to outside counsel for formal investigation regarding misuse of financial assets." They didn't use the word fraud. Not yet. But the damage was done. An intern snapped a photo as he dropped his black security fob onto the felt-lined tray at the exit station. It hit the web in under an hour, captioned, "He never even looked back." His access was shut down across 13 platforms. Staff scrubbed his name from press kits, archived sermons vanished. Conference panels re-uploaded with hard edits, like he'd never been there. But Vail? Nothing. No mention. No headline. Not even a whisper from the pulpit. He just disappeared. No appearances, no video statements, no weekly devotionals. His email auto-response said, "On sabbatical for spiritual reflection." Logan wasn't surprised. "He'll wait it out," he said. "Let the heat hit Creighton. Let the institution carry the blame. While he shifts the money somewhere else." Exactly. That's when Cass reappeared. Low signal, jittery voice, burner phone. "There's a new one," she told me. "Fresh registration in Delaware. Filed 2 days after Creighton got flagged." She sent the documents. New shell name, Harbor Faith Collective. Same logo stylings, same mission statement, same back-end routing firm tied to Creswell and Tate Holdings. But this time, no names. Just a P.O. box, a generic web portal, and a legal rep registered out of Malta. They were already moving forward. Business as usual. I spent that Sunday morning at the old mission graveyard in Kentucky, corner lot behind a forgotten church, where 6 teenagers were buried without ceremony. Some of the stones were cheap. One didn't even have a proper headstone, just a placard. I didn't speak, didn't pray. I crouched beside the middle grave and left a folded piece of paper beneath the edge of the marker. Your names remain. His won't. Logan was waiting in the car when I came back. He didn't ask what I left. That night, Margaret Duval knocked on my door. She looked tired but steady. In her hand, a sealed folder. She handed it to me without a word and sat down. I opened it. Inside, a list of Vail's business sponsors, donors, travel liaisons, PAC underwriters, back-channel foundations. But one name was circled, Solvine Worldwide. a global nonprofit for medical logistics. Based in Geneva, clean reputation, big presence, and buried deep in their board listings, a silent partner tied to Renew Revival's launch fund. I looked up. You're sure? Margaret nodded. Creighton was a distraction. Vale's bigger. This one moves international money. Mission aid, refugee resources, you name it, all filtered. Why are you giving me this? Because I helped protect them once, she said, and now you're the only one who scares them. The storm wasn't over, not even close. I carried the binder like it was part of me now. Walked into the county records office in Lexington, Kentucky. Plain tile floors, government-grade lighting, 2 overworked clerks behind glass. I stepped up to the window and slid the form across. Request for oversight inquiry, Harbor Faith Collective, filing entity number 4, 18-KN7. The clerk looked at it, then at me. You the submitter? I am. He nodded. You want confirmation email? No. I paused. Paper only. He stamped the top page and handed me the receipt. I folded it into my jacket and walked out without another word. In the car, my phone lit up before I even touched the ignition. Unknown number. I tapped it open. Just one image. Blurry, grainy, zoomed from a distance. But I knew it. Same stone pathway. Same 3-story retreat lodge I'd broken in 2 weeks ago. Only now, the nameplate above the chapel door read something different. Hope Vessel Campus. Underneath the photo was a single text from an unsaved contact. Marlowe. 1 down. Be ready. I stared at the screen a second longer, then locked it. My hand rested on my palm, right where the old scar ran diagonal across the skin. Faded now, but still there. From a busted clasp on a gear crate during a Haiti trip 8 years ago. They told me the wound wasn't deep. They were wrong. I closed my eyes and let out a slow exhale. Nothing dramatic, just pressure leaving a valve. Outside, the wind picked up, dry leaves scraping across the sidewalk in swirls. A youth group passed in front of my parked car. Teenagers in matching shirts, laughing, carrying duffel bags, joking about snacks and Wi-Fi and bugs. Same kind of shirts those 6 wore when they boarded the plane to Crusade Valley. They didn't look at me. I didn't stop them. I just stepped out, locked the door behind me, and started walking toward the building again. The game wasn't over. It was just starting.